A very good morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, wherever you may be. This is Sean.
This is Alex.
And we are here with Cozy Kings Radio, first episode of 2020. We just came back after an incredibly long day at Walt Disney World, as today was probably the messiest day for Rise of Resistance when it came to boarding groups, when it came to standing by after you got your boarding group time called and then
fast pass.
Got dumped and then got fast pass back. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but also just talk about Rise of the Resistance in general. What we thought of it our first time, what we thought of it our second time, and kind of just discuss the positives and kind of highlight some of the negatives that we found. So yeah, we'll just dedicate the first episode of the year to probably the most significant attraction opening in the region of 2019, I should say.
Yeah. We, today was interesting because, it was the first anniversary of us moving to Florida, January 3rd, and so we thought, why don't we do something kind of, I don't know, it just lucked out that our annual passes were not blocked today, because it's a Friday. Yesterday was, the day after New Year's Day. Of course, holidays are blocked, and usually the day before and after a holiday is blocked for residual crowds. But our pass was available for us to enter for just this day of this week, because, of course, we don't go on weekends, so we don't have the pass that allows for weekend entry. So we thought, okay, this is kind of an odd, random day on the calendar, a fluke day. So we were like, we should just go. We had ridden Rise of the Resistance a couple weeks ago, and I loved it. Get that out in the open. We love the ride. However, our second ride today, after quite some some hoops of fire jumping through, we find we didn't quite feel as passionately about it the second time through.
I think we should start with our first visit. So a couple of weeks ago, this was when the boarding groups worked a little bit differently. The idea was you would show up at the park, and in a moment you scanned in to the park, like through the gates. That's when you would immediately be able to book a boarding group. So whoever came in first had the first boarding group. It kind of meant that people would show up at 4, 3 in the morning. People would just be there like really early. So you just get an early boarding group. So if you were there at 3, you were the very first person in, then you would get a boarding group at 7 a.m. and boom, you'd be out there by 8. Now, to prevent people from showing up so incredibly early, which really caused a lot of, I guess, infrastructural delays, and it just kind of became a mess, especially around the holidays, they introduced a new boarding pass system the week of Christmas where you would show up to the park. The park gates would open 30 to 45 minutes before park opening, so say 6:15 a.m. or 6:30 a.m., and then everyone would pre-queue inside the park, and then at 7 o'clock sharp, the boarding groups would open on the app, and you would book a boarding group. So you could have been there since 4 a.m. or you could have been there since 6:45. Either way, if you hit that button, you got the first boarding group. So some people just got there and got an early boarding group. Some people have been there since 4 in the morning and got a late boarding group and didn't even get to board today. So I guess the system was a little more fair and kind of kept from people showing up super early.
It worked better for the infrastructure that way.
It definitely worked better for the crowds because it was packed. The park was really busy.
And they can't just staff people at every hour of the day for vehicles and stuff lining up to get into Hollywood Studios. So even though it benefited people like us, so we could roll out of bed and be at Hollywood Studios in 15 minutes, it was kind of cool that first time where we were in boarding group 10 or whatever for our first ride. This time, this is probably a bit more ethical, all things considered, and certainly creates less of the morning mad dash insanity and, having cast members show up at 2:30 in the morning to deal with vehicle traffic going into the park. So
the first time we did it, we got in the park. We got to the park around 4:45 a.m., went to security around 5:15 or so, and then the park gates opened at 6:25, and we got boarding group 15. We got called at 8:15. It was pretty great. And then when we got called, we waited. Well, we pretty much boarded, and we walked through the entire queue without any waiting. We did the pre-show. We did the first party attraction. I'm going to give you a fair idea now. If you don't want any sort of spoiler, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler here and there. You should probably just not listen to this episode and check out some of other many episodes that are on Spotify, Google Play,
wherever podcasts
iTunes
are listened to,
wherever you want to find it. But so the first time we went, we got on pretty fairly quickly on the first part of the attraction, and then we were queuing for the second part of the attraction, where we board the actual ride vehicles, and that's where we got dumped. So we were like right about to board the ride vehicles, and then we exited backstage and got a return fast pass. Which the ride was down for about an hour. Yeah, it was paper. The ride was down for about an hour or so. Then we came back and we got right on. So that was really convenient. So even though it was, all the boarding groups were gone, we got on pretty rapidly, even considering the downtime and being dumped out of the queue after our original boarding. So we did the pre-show again, we did the first part attraction again, then we did the actual dark ride. So we'll just highlight our first experience. It was actually fantastic. I cannot believe how blown away I was by Rise of the Resistance.
Some really beautiful aesthetic. We're kind of not really... I mean, Galaxy's Edge is really objectively an amazingly well-themed area. It's just not really our aesthetic. We're more, Tron people, Tomorrowland, Shanghai kind of people, which... that interest was definitely, I guess I would say, catered to almost to a degree when you're doing the second part of the Rise of the Resistance attraction. Because when you're on the, again, spoilers, when you're on the platform of the Star Destroyer preparing to board the actual ride, that aesthetic and the clean lines and the white crispness of the stormtroopers and stuff, that is more enticing, I think, to us from like a theme style perspective. So going from like the deliberate grittiness and the brown hues and deliberate ruggedness of Galaxy's Edge, and then going to the second set of pre-shows for Rise of the Resistance, and really the bulk of the ride has a much nicer aesthetic, I think.
So the nice thing about the ride is that it uses the LPS system,
local positioning system.
So the ride vehicles aren't on the track. So there's two ride vehicles interacting with each other, and then it does a bunch of cool stuff. So the first time we rode in a vehicle that was pretty much leading. So there's like 4 or 5 major moments where the two vehicles are together. And the majority of those moments, there's one vehicle that's leading.
Yeah.
And we learned in the first ride, we didn't realize that there was the vehicle right behind us. So we thought it was the greatest thing ever. Some of these scenes are so impressive when you're the first vehicle, and like, again, spoilers, you're going to be going through through the Star Destroyer on your vehicle, and there are some really great moments where you just kind of think you're alone in this giant ride. A lot of things are happening. And I didn't quite realize on our first ride, there's a ride vehicle right behind us. Now, we saw it on the video after the fact. We're like, oh, wow. So the ride vehicle behind it kind of just hovers behind it the entire ride. Even though there's a couple of parts where you split up, you take your own individual routes and you meet up again. The majority of the main big show scenes, there's the two ride vehicles are in the same show scene at the same time. So when we rode again today, we actually rode in this vehicle that's kind of hovering behind.
The rear vehicle.
I cannot believe the huge difference in impression and the huge difference in experience if you are the front vehicle where everything happens in front of you, or you're the back vehicle where you kind of see everything happening in the distance and you're not the first in the action. And it makes a big difference on how much I like the ride. I went from like number 3 Disney ride to, okay, it's in the top 10, but like it's maybe not even in the top 5 anymore.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you get the vehicle that hovers behind, there's 4 major show scenes inside Rise of the Resistance where you are not the first person experiencing it. You're kind of just witnessing the vehicle in front of you doing all the cool stuff, and you're kind of just following it. And I can't believe that wasn't more alternated, because there's definitely opportunity to just alternate who does what scene first.
Yeah.
And it just felt so one-sided. Now, we wrote it in the vehicle following. So guess that was, we loved the ride so much, but we realized our first ride on it was so much better. Not just because it was the first time riding it, we didn't know much about it.
And not just because we didn't blow an entire day trying to get on the ride. like
it
we
was
did today.
honestly just kind of because of that vehicle positioning that we were in.
Yeah.
And now the second time around, God, it didn't feel like we were in the action as much. And I think that's really the first downfall that I guess we're going to discuss, even just 10 minutes into the show, is that, yeah, Rise of Resistance is really good, but don't think it's flawless by any means, because your experience can vary very much from someone else, depending on which of the two ride vehicles you're in that are dispatching at the same time, I should say.
With a lot of Disney has been a huge pioneer of the LPS dark rides. I mean, the very first ones is going to be 20 years old this year. Winnie the Pooh's Honey Hunt at Tokyo Disney. The technology itself hasn't changed a whole lot. It's just individual vehicles. The vehicles themselves, designs have changed quite a bit. I think Rise of the Resistance's use of the LPS vehicles as droids is, of course, a brilliant application, like a perfect marriage of theming and intellectual property marrying technology available to create something so perfect. But in our experience with the other LPS dark rides we've been on, like Mystic Manor at Hong Kong Disney or Symbolica at De Efteling, these dark rides send 3 to 4 vehicles out at a time, and they're smaller vehicles, and one particular vehicle doesn't seem to take precedence over the other.
They kind of just rotate in what they're doing, and all kind of have their own show stuff.
Mystic Manor, for example, is a 4-vehicle dispatch. Each vehicle has a slightly different point of view for the ride. Some have better views of certain scenes than others. But Mystic Manor, you can choose, you can request Car 1, Car 2, Car 3, and so on. And I think the best application, or I guess my favorite application of the system being Symbolica at Efteling, is that each vehicle has its own theme.
Yeah, it's almost like they put 3 rides into one show building, so you'll go through different scenes depending on what ride you chose to ride. So you have the music tour, the hero tour,
and the treasures tour.
And the treasure tour, translated to English, of course.
Treasures was
kind
our
of
favorite, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so part of me now thinks about it. I'm like, wow, what if Rise of Resistance had like 2 options? But of course the whole theme is that you are being interrogated by the First Order. You have no choice. You got to put where you got put.
And it's one thing. I mean, Efteling, of course, as usual, goes above and beyond by giving people a reason to want to choose Car 1, Car 2, or Car 3 by advertising that each ride has a special characteristic that's unique. Each vehicle, each
Which
experience.
is, of course, much easier for a park like Efteling than it is for Disney's Hollywood Studios and the most anticipated ride of the decade. But at the same time, it does become noticeable when you experience rides like Mystic Manor or Symbolica, and then you ride rides.
At least, Mystic Manor is obviously, as an enthusiast, you ride it a few times, you get a feel for it, and you decide which car is your favorite based on which scenes you like the most. Rise of the Resistance, there's no luxuries there when it comes to wanting to pick your seat, because you can't. There's no point in the cast member spiel, which is wonderful. The interrogation process of your seat assigning for Rise of the Resistance is awesome. But because it's a show, it's not really. There's no place for you to ask the cast member that you would like a particular seat. It's not really that kind of thing. And I know we're a bit nitpicky here. We're kind of spoiled. But I do want to
move into the idea of it being a show. Yes, the First Order is telling you where to sit because you're in interrogation, and things go from there. The show is actually what saves the attraction. Not saying the attraction is bad by any means, but why is it still so fantastic, even if you're in the second car, is because the whole product from start to finish is absolutely phenomenal. There's 2 rides in one. Yep, I said it. Spoiler alert. There's 2 rides in one. And instead of having a million pre-shows, this attraction does such a fantastic job of combining a bunch of little parts of the queue and pre-shows and making it one long actual attraction. 20-minute experience. But in reality, not really, because really you're standing around.
I think Flight of Passage really wanted to be, this cohesive, fluid thing. But really it just feels like a lot of preamble and a lot of going through the motions and just kind of wishing you could get to the meat of the issue being the actual simulator ride. Whereas Rise of the Resistance, the preamble of sorts. It's really integral to the experience in a way that Flight of Passage just couldn't quite encompass.
So the great thing about about Rise of the Resistance is that you do combine all those different elements that we've seen in previous pre-shows, previous queues, previous rides, and it just creates a completely custom experience where for the first time ever, it includes all theme parks you've ever been to. Your queuing experience completely blends with your riding experience, and that is just something that must have taken so much more than just designing this ride. Like it's the whole product that is absolutely unbelievable, and I think that once you will experience it for yourself and you'll do the first part of the attraction and then you get, again spoiler, to the Star Destroyer and then you do the second half of the attraction, which is the main part of the attraction, and then you end up back in Batuu, it's all a complete circle, and I think it's the first time ever that circle has actually been complete.
Also, I think
from start to finish, complete circle.
If I had to pick like my favorite or I think the best component of this attraction, because there's a lot of things going on, I really think it is truly the cast member roles that are played, the character roles, because they're not just ride operators. Every person that works on this ride and interacts with the guests are playing a part in a experience. They're not just pushing buttons and dispatching rides. They are acting.
And even if there's a bit of a switchback you're using, inside those switchbacks there are cast members that are actively engaging and acting. And then, of course, you get to where the pre-show starts, and that's when it really kicks in. Every single bit is acting. It's all a production.
And you can have fun with it, too. I mean, you can get into it. Cast members will stay in character, and you can bring your own. Basically, I mean, you've been apprehended by the First Order. So the cast members that you're dealing with are members of the First Order who are trying to extort information about the resistance out of you, and they'll rough you up a little if you let them, verbally, of course. But that's all part of the show. It's part of the experience, and it's fun to get involved in it. It's kind of it's yours to make of it what you will, and really, I think with the other location positioning based dark rides that we've ridden. That might be the most exciting aspect of the ride for a lot of people because it's maybe something they've never seen before, vehicles themed to droids that seem to have a mind of their own and operate by themselves. For a lot of people, that is the major like wow factor characteristic of the ride. But for us, I think it's the cast members.
I think the biggest wow for me was between the first part of the attraction and the second part of the attraction when you first enter the Star Destroyer. They did such a great job of capturing you. Like, not just capturing you, like, by First Order, but capturing you as in, like, captivating. Just walking into that first major component of the Star Destroyer, which that'll have to discover on your own if you don't know it yet.
I mean, pictures of it are all over the place. It's breathtaking.
It's breathtaking. It's just so serene and so clean and so large, and you're just...
It really takes you to another place.
And I think it's the first time ever that I was inside of an attraction, inside of a show building, where I truly felt like I was not in a show building.
Yeah.
Even Tron, which I love to death, it's a show building, and you can't hide it.
Yeah.
But I think this is the first time I was ever in a show building where I did not feel like I was in a show building. I felt like I was transported somewhere way out into space. And
the
I was
seamlessness
so impressed.
of it is unmatched.
And that continues on the ride. Like, of course, you're on a starship or Star Destroyer, and there's a lot of outer space things happening. They did such a great job making it seem like you're in outer space the entire time. But never did I feel like I was in a show building. Never did I feel like I was on a ride. So even though, we were in the second vehicle today, and perhaps I didn't quite like it as much as the first vehicle, but no matter what, the ride does a really good job keeping you in that environment and and just immersing you 100%.
We talked about we really want to shake up our top 20 Disney attractions. We did an article about that after our first Shanghai Disney visit in 2017, and after we rode Rise of Resistance, we had to ask ourselves, like, okay, I think it's time to rewrite the article with this ride in it, obviously, and a lot of other changes too. But it's the ride that makes us want to reevaluate like what makes a great Disney attraction, and where the standard is, where the bar is. as far as the whole industry is concerned. Based on our first ride, we were confident that it was, third in command, only behind our beloved Shanghai Disney 1-2 punch of Pirates and Tron, which that was where they were in the 2017 article, and I don't know if that'll change anytime soon, but...
And even though I may not think that Rise of the Resistance, having ridden the second car and having dealt with the whole operational nightmare again, I may not necessarily think it's in the top 3. I do still think it's definitely in the top 10. Like, it's definitely going to end up in the article. And I do believe it's still Walt Disney World's best attraction.
Yeah.
Like, Walt Disney World finally got something that didn't feel like just another version of something else. Besides Animal Kingdom or Epcot, of course. But I just felt like it was finally a big e-ticket attraction that was not rough around the edges. It was completely polished. 100% a product that I was looking for in this resort so badly. Shanghai has it. Paris,
Disney,
to an extent, has it. Tokyo Disney has it. Anaheim has a couple of attractions that are much more polished than Walt Disney World. But this was the first time I finally felt like Walt Disney World lived up to its name.
Yeah.
Like, Walt Disney World. Like, you finally have something that I would go there for.
Finally, it was something
I live around the corner.
That wasn't, lowest common denominator.
Exactly.
Easy, We talk about Disney World has, Disney World can rest on its laurels because people just go because it's Disney World.
And a lot of people don't get exposed to other Disney resorts, so for them, that Big Thunder is the Big Thunder. But for me, that's the worst Big Thunder.
Yeah.
And for them, that Space Mountain is the Space Mountain, but I prefer, like, several of the other Space Mountains.
And Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean, anyone would talk about that, right?
And Magic Kingdom is horrible. Awful.
But, anywhere else in the world, they are much superior versions. So it's nice to finally have an attraction at Walt Disney World, especially at Hollywood Studios, the park that I never really considered to be that nice. To have a ride, I'm like... willing to wake up at 5 a.m., wait 12 hours on the day, lingering, waiting through the queue, getting dumped, having to go through FastPass, wait a half day again to get on that thing. It's worth it, in my opinion.
Today was a mess, by the way.
So what we're
kind of alluded
to
it, but really explicitly.
Yeah, let's run over it real quick. So today is January 3rd. This was the first day that all annual pass holders have been unblocked for the year. And it was a really, really busy day.
It was a busy day, and it was
also
honestly
the day with the most
day.
Downtime for Rise of Resistance
since
far.
It opened, yeah.
So we got to the park around 6. We got inside around 6:15, 6:20. Then we waited till 7, which is rope drop, to go join a boarding group. We got assigned number 67 at like 7:01.
Which 67 isn't,
generally it would be like a 12 p.m. boarding time.
Not a bad,
most days.
Yeah, like it really. I mean, maybe even earlier than that. I mean, we were boarding at 1:15, but the ride had suffered a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
So I would say that even sooner than that would have been normal. The ride on average seems to load about 125 to 130 boarding groups a day.
So 1:15 came, and every time we thought we were closed, it would break down. It would stop distributing boarding groups or calling boarding groups for about an hour or so. So finally, we got into the queue, and we see the queue is way out the building. As for the first day we went, we walked straight onto the pre-show, and now we waited with all the downtime about 2 hours and 20 minutes because at 3:36 p.m. right after the pre-show. We didn't enter the first part of the attraction. We actually got dumped.
Yeah.
Which meant that after waiting for a long time, given Disney gave us water, popcorn, and chips in the queue for free, which is nice. And that's a good recovery for people who've already been waiting since 6 a.m. to get on this ride. But anyways, right before boarding the attraction's first part, we got dumped. And we got a fast pass to come back. However, there was no S1E when the ride was going to reopen, which had been the story all day. So we went to Epcot, had some food, went to Magic Kingdom, posted the Tron Light Cycle Power Run vehicles, came back to Disney Hollywood Studios,
and we
stroll up, and the ride still hadn't reopened. I had boarded a couple of groups, and the queue was full, but there was no one boarding. At this point, I realized we're still at 87, and I think they closed at 94 last boarding group for the day. But
this was the first day, I think, if not the first day in a while, maybe the first day ever, that they didn't even board 100 boarding groups. I'm not sure for certain, but the ride had such a tremendous amount of downtime today.
It was just down more than it was up.
The app says that they'll board basically it says anyone that's in boarding group 125 or above.
Or below.
125 or above may not get boarded.
But it pretty much indicated 125 is like the minimum of hitting.
Yeah.
And people even like have tips online saying like if you have over 125, don't worry, you may even get on.
Yeah.
Well, people that were above 94 never got on. And this park had been open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm not kidding. It's now how many hour operating day? Like 15-hour operating day?
It's incredible.
Anyway, so we got back to the ride around 7:20 or so, or around 7, and then we waited around a little bit, and then they were opening the queue. But I noticed on my app that I got a fast pass that was also available as a multi-experience app when they scanned my Magic Band when they dumped the queue. However, for some reason, I don't think Alex's Magic Band was scanned properly.
Mine did not get scanned properly
because he did not have my Disney Experience like extra multiple experience fast pass, which was also available for Rise of the Resistance. So we kind of saw there was going to be a problem coming up because we know that the moment that they're going to open the fast pass queue for the returns, people are going to flood it, and it's going to be a problem if you don't have a fast pass. Sure enough, mine scans in. Alex is like being put to the side.
They tried to separate us and
I'm like
in like a different group, and I'm like,
and
no.
it all had been a stressful day, but at this point we have been there for like over 12 hours trying to get on this ride.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to argue with them.
We kind of laid down the law.
We were like the same boarding group. We're wearing the same.
We're wearing the same outfit.
We have my fast pass scanned, his didn't, but we're the same boarding group. Like, look at our information. We
have the paper trail of us being on group 67. I was the one that made the reservation for boarding group 67.
Yeah, and I was the one that actually got a fast pass because mine scanned and his didn't. So after a short argument,
they've been having a lot of problems.
They've been having so many problems. So they were just like, okay, we believe you guys. Walk on. It definitely helped. We were wearing the exact same Disney outfit.
Yeah.
So we got on, and then we walked on pretty rapidly, and then we got the second vehicle.
Yeah, we were in and out in 40 minutes.
Yeah, which is not bad for Rise because Rise of the Resistance is an experience. Like you do a lot. That's not even necessarily the main attraction, the main ride. So I enjoyed the ride, and the cool thing about Rise of the Resistance is that depending on the time of day, the ride kind of changes. So like at nighttime, the ride scenes will be like themed to night, and during the day, the ride scenes will be themed to like the day, which is nice. So we got to experience it with like the night theme for the first time. But yeah, I must admit, when we got back to the station, the last scene wasn't working. And I know I had been having mad difficulties today, so I didn't really care about the last scene.
Yeah, we were just glad we got the ride.
Having to deal with that much of a waiting and that much of a production to get on the ride, and then realizing for the first time that second vehicle has such an altered ride experience, it definitely changed my mind about the ride.
Yeah. And the park really, at first we were really disappointed because we just felt like the park had dropped the ball operationally because we weren't sure. After they dumped the crew and gave us dumped the queue and gave us fast passes, we weren't sure how it was working as far as like calling other boarding groups.
I think our problem was that we had been called. We waited 2.5 hours in the queue. Then we watched the pre-show, and for some reason after that, they dumped us. And I was like, why haven't you dumped us way before? The ride has been down for hours.
Yeah.
And now you're waiting, having us do the pre-show, and riders are about to board, you're dumping us? I was like, are the people behind us in line that are going to wait in the queue, get on, that are later boarding groups, because they started increasing boarding groups for a second while we were also waiting.
They don't have any other way of informing people who got dumped and are waiting on fast passes. They don't have any other way of notifying these people that the ride is open again, except for boarding groups being accepted. So say, in our case, we were in boarding group 67. The ride broke down and dumped the queue at boarding group 73. But there's no way to know that the ride had reopened except for checking on the app and seeing that they were boarding group 74.
But the problem is, before they started boarding group 74, they would open a fast pass first. So they would let anyone in that was dumped. So it could be hours before you knew if the ride had reopened, and by the time you got there, it was guaranteed down again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how it went all day.
The system
so this is frustrating for people.
It wouldn't feel so flawed, the system of being notified when the ride is open again, if the ride wasn't constantly up and down.
Yeah, and for us, we live local, so it was kind of one of those things where like, okay, well, we can come back next week if we really wanted to. But I think the problem was that we shared like a family experience for 2.5 hours with another family in the queue, and they had traveled here from
Rochester, New York,
and they spent the entire day trying to ride this thing. And after 2.5 hours of waiting and being like kind of disappointed after spending that much money, the queue got dumped, and I felt nothing but embarrassment on behalf of my local park I was like, wow, this really sucks.
Yeah.
These people spent thousands of dollars to go with their family, and now the entire day is blown, and they got dumped right as they board.
It's really like we're very fortunate. We've done a lot of amazing things. So when we complain, per se, about stuff like this, it's not about us. We love Disney World, and we love talking to other enthusiasts and other Disney people, and really
there's nothing more exciting than hyping up the ride as we're in a queue. I'm like, it's worth it. Like,
Yeah.
we've been standing here for 2.5 hours. It's worth it. You cannot wait it. We come outside to go to the first part of the ride, and something just
And
dumped.
we get dumped. Yeah.
I was like, wow, great. I hyped this ride up, and I cannot do anything about this anymore.
I had this feeling of like, wow, we are clowns. Like, Disney made a fool of us today because we were up here. We spent 2 hours talking up your ride. And then
just to be dumped,
just for you to dump the queue on us when that should have been the procedure right away. So I know that it's a work in progress for Disney, and ultimately they did come through with a pretty surprising service recovery, because once we got home, we found
anyone from Group 94 to 125 got comp tickets for tomorrow and a guaranteed fast pass for Rise to the Resistance. So not just kudos to the operations team and whoever, marketing, whoever was in charge of that. I want to give a huge shout out to the cast members who are at that ride, who are in that area, because the mobs were mad. We were kind of upset. Everyone was just upset. Everyone spent the entire day trying to get on this ride. The lines were all the way down to like Muppet Vision of people who were hopeful to get their boarding group called today, which they didn't get called. Everyone who was there waiting also showed up before 7, because otherwise there was not even a reason to wait. So you can understand that everyone there at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., they're just upset they want to ride, and it's been all day. Either they never got called, they got called and waited and waited
14
and got
hours
dumped
for their boarding group to get called after the app told them it would be, and then it didn't happen.
So the cast members had to deal with a lot of upset guests, and to be honest, they did a really phenomenal job. I want to say that for a park that is such a mass production, or for a resort, their cast members, their team was on point. They did a good job. They helped out where they could. They were well trained, and I want to give a shout out to everyone that we dealt with. They always stayed nice.
Yeah, the whole
always.
Galaxy's Edge team. I mean, by and large, I think the staff at Disney World, the ride ops, and just everyone that we.
I know it's probably a privilege to work that attraction or area, but still, whoever they deserve.
In general,
working,
I
they did
think
a good
the Disney
job.
World staff is incredible in their courteousness and their friendliness, and it's fully populated by people who clearly love to work there and love to serve and delight the public, but especially Galaxy's Edge and Rise of the Resistance.
Because these people deal with angry mobs of people all day long.
The staffing was incredible, not just
Yeah.
how friendly and attentive they were, but how many people. Like, it was all hands on deck. There was dozens of cast members running around with iPads, making adjustments to people's vacation plans to accommodate the fact that Rise of the Resistance may at the time, there was no guarantee that it would reopen. And cast members, instead of taking this like one-size-fits-all approach with people, I could overhear bits and pieces of conversation of cast members getting to know these people and whatever struggle this Rise of the Resistance operational disaster day was contributing to, and finding out what their plans are and what they're able to do, and trying to provide a solution that works with everyone's plans, instead of just throwing tickets and fast passes at people and saying, here's a solution. For the people that were there at the ride at 7 or 8 p.m., waiting, trying to get on, I think there was enough cast members on hand to help make sure that people had a tailored solution to their issue, and I think it diffused a lot of the.
And I think it was part of damage control, because if you're going to just give out fast passes to everyone in the mother today, then tomorrow's operation is also going to be a mess, because are you going to be able to even get the boarding group 80 if you have like hundreds of fast passes from the day before, and hundreds of fast passes of your downtime on a Saturday? So I think they did a good job like meeting people's needs, and overall I was pretty impressed. So take that for what you will. The ride itself was very impressive, but I think the overall production, even outside of the front entrance of the ride, they got a good team. They have a good thing going for them. And whether or not I really do believe that there should be better alternating between vehicle 1 and 2, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If it's your first time riding, I would say deal with that hassle. If there's a hassle, if there's an operational delay, just honestly deal with it. It'll be worth your day.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever thought Hollywood Studios was worth a full day, and that's because I would wait all day long at that park just to ride that. I don't care what I'm doing.
We spent a lot of time there today. I'm a little Hollywood Studioed out right now.
Oh, for sure.
But there's a lot to appreciate there. We actually, we have a confession to make. This was the first time today, while we were biding our time before our reservation group was called, we actually watched the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. And we had never actually done that before because it's, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that if we're any kind of Disney people, we're ride Disney people. We're there for the roller coasters and the dark rides and that kind of thing. So shows, we always like the idea of shows, but sometimes it's a hard sell.
There's a few shows around the world that I really, really like. It's going to be like Waterworld and Universal Studios Hollywood, or Chamonix Ocean Kingdom's Ocean Resistance. I mean, I would literally watch that every day of my life and never stop. But then when it comes to
Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, when it comes to Disney World, we're usually not the biggest fans. Just because it's super crowded. I feel like some of the shows are not that good, but they get hyped up. Like Fantasmic at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Sorry, people, but that's not good.
We love Fantasmic, but not that Fantasmic.
No, Fantasmic in Anaheim and Fantasmic in Tokyo are much better. But that's a whole different story I don't want to get into. I'm not trying to sound elitist. But other than that, we really enjoyed the stunt show. I really hope they keep it forever.
I'm so glad.
That was really great.
Indy is special for a lot of reasons, but I think
the OG ride
it's
for the
last.
Or OG attraction.
It's the last remaining original attraction for Hollywood Studios, since there was a lot of potential there with the Great Movie Ride and the studio backlot tour, as far as repurposing into Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and Galaxy's Edge, respectively. I think no matter how much you loved those rides, I guess you could say it was a fair trade, because now we've exchanged the original rides at Hollywood Studios, or MGM Studios rather, for perhaps the most marketable characteristics of that the resort has seen in a while. I guess you could throw Toy Story Land in there too, because that was all.
But I think Star Wars makes people travel more, because Star Wars isn't. Every Disney park has had a Toy Story Land.
Well, yeah, no, I mean the Toy Story Land that it sits on the old tram tour lot as well. Mm-hmm. So, like, by sacrificing the tram tour, we got Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, and we got Runaway Railway, which we're super excited about, in exchange for a Great Movie Ride, which I loved Great Movie Ride, but it's also an acquired taste. And in this era where people come to Disney World to eat, sleep, and breathe Disney, no surprises there.
The Wizard of Oz wasn't quite there.
Singing in the Rain and Alien and some of these, the movies that were represented in the early MGM Studios premise attractions, maybe haven't aged as well as attractions that focus on Disney IPs. So as much as I miss that final scene with the Wizard of Oz there at the end, it's kind of, I'd say it's a fair trade. I think Runaway Railway has a lot of potential, and we're excited to see it come to...
I think the locations are perfect. We were talking about it earlier. We're sitting on a bench. Again, we're killing time today. So we're sitting on this bench in front of it.
Relaxing. A little stressful.
And we're just kind of like, finally, Walt Disney World, and Disneyland for that matter, are going to get their Mickey ride. It's all about Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, but there was never a Mickey ride, and now there is a Mickey ride.
It was always the great head scratcher. It's like, this whole resort is built around a mouse, but he doesn't have a ride.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. And you know what? Speaking of first, because Indiana Jones was our first time, it was also our very, very first time waiting in standby queue for Rock 'n' Roller Coaster. Believe it or not, I have never seen the standby queue, and I must have ridden this ride at least 100 times.
Me neither.
Never seen the standby queue for Rock 'n' Roller Coaster here, and I learned it's so small. I'm terrified of the idea of waiting in it if it's not 7 a.m.
Rock 'n' Roller Coaster had a 3-hour wait all day today, which means that
it was just all fast passes coming in,
moving at one person every 10 minutes.
Dude, that's what makes my heart cry. Get those paid fast passes in here. But yeah, so that was really fun. In general, I would say we had a good day. Rise of Resistance was worth having to deal with this whole ordeal. And if it's your first time riding, I'll be honest, whatever you can, try to get on it because there's no better ride at Walt Disney World.
Yeah,
is it our favorite? No, because we like people moving better. But that's just because we're weird.
We're just weird. we love people mover.
And once Toronto opens and Cosmic Rewind, maybe we'll like those better. But as of right now, yeah, I think it's my favorite. Well, I think it's the best ride at Hollywood Studios.
I would say Rise of the Resistance. I would say is probably objectively the best ride in Central Florida right now. Which is hard for me to admit as such a huge fan of rides like Spider-Man and Hagrid's Escape from Gringotts.
I think Hagrid's biggest flaw is that it's outside, so it's way harder to control the whole, to control the environment.
The elements, yeah.
Control the elements. So on Rise of Resistance, like we mentioned, it's flawless. I feel like I'm completely transported. For the first time ever, I feel like I'm not inside a show building. And no matter what you try, even though you're not really in the show building much, and Hagrid, you can still see Rock and Roller Coaster in the distance. You can still see that there's a big giant painted wall that is definitely not a real tree. So
you can see Rock and Roller Coaster from Hagrid.
Oh, I meant like Red Rocket. I'm sorry.
That was cute.
But either way, Rise to Resistance, really great ride.
Total slam dunk for the park. I mean, once they get that thing running consistently, which they're not far off. It's for what that ride does, the amount of things that it combines. It's got so much going on that when you ride it, you really, whether you care about Star Wars or not, the ride system is so incredible. You can't help but applaud seeing all this tapestry of technology just work in harmony.
Which is why the downtime is not surprising. There's so many elements. We're kind of just thinking like, oh, what could it be? What's down now? Because there's a million things that it could be.
I would be so curious to know because it broke down. It had at least three separate breakdowns in excess of at least an hour and a half today.
Yeah.
With combined overall downtime of several hours. I want to know if it's the same component 3 times or 3 different components one time. Just out of morbid curiosity. You could take bets based on real rides and knowing the components of the ride well enough, asking yourself, was it the pre-ride carousel? Was it the Kylo Ren final scene? Was it the drop track sequence? There's just so many things going on.
Elevators, what was it?
Yeah, elevators up, elevators down, it really is a testament to what they've accomplished here when you think about all the things that could go wrong. And then I sit back and think, well, yeah, we kind of jumped through Rings of Fire to ride it today, but you know what? We did ride it. And I feel very fortunate to have ridden it twice now. I'm very fortunate to have ridden it twice and be in a position to say that maybe it's not our favorite, but still an objectively spectacular ride and a real slam dunk for the Walt Disney World Resort in Central Florida.
And I think going into this episode, after today, I kind of had a certain opinion, but then talking about it and thinking about all the aspects again, it's a very solid attraction. For most people, they're not going to experience it more than once in their life or once a year, depending on how much, how frequently the general Walt Disney World goer goes to Walt Disney World. And if it's just like a once in a very long time kind of attraction, it is just absolutely spectacular and memorable.
And it helps that right before we decided to record, we were procrastinating because we were tired and we had some dinner. And we saw on social media that they were giving away Hollywood Studios admission.
Definitely changed the mood because people were just mad. And you kind of feed off of that.
The line for guest services was 100 people long. We were joking about how they were going to do reservation boarding groups for guest services now because...
Boarding zone 1 through 8 cannot go to guest services.
Disney Plus, my Disney Magic Pass for guest services. But no, I think looking at the situation objectively and seeing Disney really bend to cater to the people and to do their best to right the wrongs and to control the damage in a very public, unapologetic.
It was very professional. That's where I felt, and this is not to trash Universal, but whenever there's Hagrid issues, it was just kind of like, oh, well, the ride closed early. Oh, well, the ride's opening late.
They sweep it.
Well, there's no information whatsoever. And Disney does such a good job communicating with the guests. Even if it's hard to find out when a ride's open or not, I'm pretty sure they don't even know when a ride's open or not.
Yeah.
So they did a really good job communicating about when you can ride, how tickets worked, how your money was spent, and how you're still getting your value and how they're helping you. That's why I haven't quite gotten the vibe with all the Hagrid issues. And let me tell you, there's Hagrid issues.
Yeah. We can't discount. Living in Central Florida, 2019 has been the year of I think more so than ever, has been the year of Star Wars versus Harry Potter, with major marquee Star Wars and Harry Potter attractions opening at around the same time. We have with Galaxy's Edge opening in May of this year at Disneyland, and then Hagrid opening here in Orlando in June, and then followed by Galaxy's Edge here in Orlando thereafter, and then Rise of Resistance, of course. But we can't discount the fact that Rise of the Resistance is having problems, but it's also only 3 weeks old. Whereas Hagrid is half a year old and is still stumbling its way through its fledgling operations. We went the day after Christmas to Universal. Everything had a crazy long line, relatively speaking, except for Hagrid.
Because Hagrid was running like 9 or so vehicles, and we got, or maybe even more, maybe 9, 10, 11, and we got on and we got off within an hour, even though like the entire switchbacks, like the entire queue was full, every possible bit of queue, and then we waited through Hogsmeade. We got on within an hour. Then we go back on yesterday, the 2nd of January. We kid you not, the line was like seriously over 5 hours long. They were running like four or five trains. It was horrible at least it was horrible for the waiter, because I mean, even if the line looked short, you were just not moving.
Yeah. We knew something was up because, on our December 26th visit, I mean, you could catch 4 Hagrid trains in your field of vision at once. You're standing on that little area on the exit where you can kind of admire the ride after the fact. And for a few flashes there, you could see 4 trains at once versus the other day where for a moment there was no train visible at all. This is another situation where we feel for the cast members and really applaud their ability to what's the word I'm looking for? To diffuse the visiting public, because it's a stressful time. And we talked a lot about the general energy, the aura of people being in Orlando on vacation right now for the holidays, and this general feeling of everyone is surprised at how busy it is. Like,
everyone's surprised, and that's such a problem.
People plan these trips, and all that they need to give themselves the green light is the fact that, well, everyone's off of work and school, so obviously that means we can go to Disney World or we can go to Universal Studios, and that's it. That's where the thinking process, the planning process stops.
But then they pull up the parks and there's 3-hour lines, or they didn't realize that they had to be there by 7 because the 7:02 were out of boarding.
They show up and they're like, "Oh wow!" Like,
what do you mean I can't ride Rise of Resistance? Honey, we showed up at 6 in the morning for this.
Yeah.
Like, were you part of this? No. Like, I'm sorry.
It's like, wow, other people are also not in school and not working during the holidays too.
And it's the only warm place in the country right now.
And decided to come to Florida. So I don't know. I always want people to have a great time here, because what's good for Orlando is good for a lot of people, and what's good for Orlando is people coming and being happy and enjoying themselves and wanting to come back. But this time of year, the consumers need to take more responsibility for the stuff that they get themselves into, because people are just arriving in Orlando, showing up at Universal, stumbling into Walt Disney World. They've spent all this money and they're just
not prepared,
blissfully ignorant of all of the other people that are here, and then they have the audacity to be shook. And it's like, oh no, you could have saved yourself a lot of grief. It's a quick Google search away. I mean, it's not even something you should have to Google. Like you said, it's the only warm place in the United States right now, except Hawaii and Texas and Southern California.
They've been pretty cold lately.
Yeah, Southern California had snow, so I guess, certainly the warmest place in the lower 48. And then people come here and expect it to not be just totally insane. Totally insane. Especially since the resorts have been, trucking right along lately with these major attractions.
I'm impressed with all the increases in pricing that they're still doing so well, but I guess that's exactly why the prices are increasing, because they're still doing so well.
People seem very confused also by the idea that, like, Disney World can be too expensive and too crowded. And it's like, well, no, you can't, if you want to complain about both of these things, you have to take a step back and consider that these two things are related. If Disney World was as cheap as everyone wanted it to be, we can say with confidence that the crowd thing would be way worse than it is now. No one wants to talk about resorts pricing people out so that it's not shoulder to shoulder in the parks, but unfortunately it's still shoulder to shoulder in a lot of these parks, even with prices are what they are.
Yeah, sometimes I'm so amazed, like walking up to Islands Adventure and then looking at the tickets for like a park hopper for a day. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Like, that's so crazy. Like, who would pay that?
We're so spoiled.
But then, like, there they are, 5-hour lines for the rides. Everyone's there.
I guess
we'll do it.
We kind of become ignorant to it a little because we get desensitized. We have our annual passes. We renew
California
them.
annual passes are really expensive.
Yeah.
But here, there's like so little locals compared to the tourist that comes over that like season passes are dirt cheap down here.
Yeah, it's for Disney World. We pay $1 a day.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like $370
a
year for the
we
cheap
go, like,
annual
once
pass.
A week, twice a week. Yeah.
The only time we buy admission to parks are when we're in places where the Disney park in the city costs $74 for a one-day ticket. Tokyo Disney, Shanghai Disney, Hong Kong. And then we come back home and look at the menu board for the point of sale, and we're just like, oh my gosh, that's right. Like, we charge all this money to get in here, and it's super crowded. They must be doing something right.
But yeah, the whole point of this episode is kind of to discuss how great Rise of the Resistance is, and I'd say that there is, the crowds at Hollywood Studios are definitely way higher than they used to be, and that's for a good reason. Even if you don't get on the ride, the park has so much more to offer, and Galaxy's Edge is a good, half-day spender if you're into it. So, yeah, I would say book your vacation to Walt Disney World and try getting on Rise of the Resistance. I think it's worth it.
If you book your trip now for, the spring, you may not have to worry too much about the operational hookups, because today was
I would say January,
today
February,
was hard,
months,
but
March is busy. But
today was a loss in a sea of victories. I don't think anyone needs to worry about extrapolating the operation today. If anything, people should focus on how well Disney ultimately handled it with the comp admissions and fast passes and things, and trying their best to accommodate the needs of the people on resort, and plan your Disney trips and your Universal trips with limited worries, and just look at the crowd calendars, budget properly, have reasonable expectations, and make sure your favorite ride isn't going to be down for seasonal maintenance.
Always important.
Always important.
And as we just started 2020, of course, we have a couple things down the pipeline, because it wouldn't be us if we didn't already plan for another great, successful, hopefully, year. So recently we just launched a bunch of little articles. They're kind of like listicles. Like, we kind of look at the worst parks we've been to, the best parks we've been to, our favorite surprise coasters of 2019.
European parks.
European stuff, coasters. Like what kind of roller coasters from the decades. So honestly, if you're kind of looking for some fun listicles and kind of get some opinions of us, I would say totally go to the coasterkings.com and check out some of those recent articles. And then what we're working on now for the next couple of months is we're doing a quick Disneyland Paris trip in February. It'll be really fun, because last time we went to Disneyland Paris, I sat on a rock in front of Space Mountain crying because I wanted to ride at Sabelli.
It was a shit show the whole day.
And the whole day was a shit show operationally, and they just kind of tell everyone, well, it's open tomorrow. And I was like, well, tomorrow, I'm in Los Angeles again. I need to ride.
We love Disneyland Paris, but it's also...
Yeah, so I'm excited to give another shot in February. It's going to be cold. It's going to be not that busy.
It's our sixth favorite Disney resort out of 6.
However, Disneyland Park Paris is actually
Disneyland Park
good.
Paris
we rated
number
4.
Yes.
So we're going to do that.
We're going to go to California.
We're going to California like soon. 2 weeks from now.
Hopefully, yeah.
Got some West Coast racers
we
in.
We are so excited for West Coast racers. We're so excited for Magic Mountain. Got to go to Knott's Berry Farm and get our Papa Loca fries.
Get our fries.
Ride Montezuma's Revenge.
And in May, we are, believe it or not, doing a China 2.0 trip.
We're going to China again.
That's the plan, at least. But as of right now, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. It's right after the Canton Fair, which is a big Chinese trade fair, like the largest fair in the world, actually, like the largest convention.
The World's Fair.
And it's in South China, which is where we're going as well. So, like Guangzhou. So we're waiting until after it's over, and then we're flying out to China, and then we're going to South China at the end. So kind of just give ourselves a buffer, and the weather should be nice enough. Trying to get on a new Fukuoka firestorm a shockwave in Nanjing. We obviously going to go back to Shanghai Disney for a day.
We're going to go back to Changmong Ocean Kingdom.
And probably 2 days.
And then parks in West China. Looking at Chengdu, Chongqing.
We're doing a little bit of in middle China, like Chengdu and Chongqing. There's a couple new parks, like a Taron clone from the Hazeland is opening in Chengdu Sunakland.
We didn't have the best track record with Sunak, but we certainly had a better track record than Happy Valley. So
very excited to do that. We have a visa expires in July, so we want to get.
That's why we're going back so soon, is because Sean's visa will be up in July, and we may as well just get 2 shots out of it, and then with our second China trip in a year under our belts, we'll probably take a little China sabbatical. 2021 is going to be all about Europe.
Yep, we're going to do Europe
all
everywhere.
These parks in Scandinavia and Germany and even Great Britain,
Netherlands, Belgium.
Everyone's
so many new rides opening.
Everyone's shooting their shots.
So
we're getting Asia out of our system right now. While we've got the visa, just Disneyland Paris, I think, for this year for us for Europe.
Maybe we'll do a lightning fall trip. Or I kind of want to do New Year's at Efteling next year.
That'd be fun too.
That'd be pretty fun. And maybe Europa Park in the winter because they're open. So there's a couple options we have for later in the year. So we're definitely looking at that. Personally, I'm trying to continue my travel agent stuff some more, kind of book some more vacations globally. So if you do have any theme park trip chef coming up that are international, or you want to go to Orlando and get the best deals and the best tips, you can always hit me up. I'm a travel agent as well. And all that, we're just kind of trying to keep our site fresh with new articles, updates, travel the country. A lot in the spring, we'll go to Chicago, to Great America. We're going to
New Jersey.
We're New Jersey a lot this year.
Definitely a big New Jersey trip is in order.
So we'll just be hopping around the country. In the spring, we'll do late spring, we'll do China, and then maybe in the fall we'll do some more Europe. Summer, it's going to be mostly just Orlando stuff.
CoasterCon in June. We're probably, I don't know if we'll maybe officially
do a day
attend.
Or two, but yeah.
We crashed CoasterCon last year, and we were pretty happy with that, so we may crash it again. Go ride Candemonium.
So we got a lot coming up, so make sure to follow along with us.
Please, if you email us, text us, send us an email, message us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, carrier pigeon. If you see us in a park, flag us down, yell at us, whatever.
And if you guys ever have any ideas of hey, I wish they would talk about this, we're trying to get some more opinion pieces out there. We started to realize that whether parks or people like it or not, we have an opinion of things, and I think to care is to share. We love this industry, we love what we're doing in our blogging, and so we get pretty critical sometimes, but the idea is that we do that because we know what to expect and we love it, and we know what the park can do and what the park can do. So if you have ever any idea of wow, I really would like an article that kind of talks about this, or I wonder what the Coaster Kings think about this, or what are the favorite parks here or there, just hit us up. We'll write an article about it. And we'll get it live. And we're always kind of trying to connect with our readers and connect with the industry. We'll be back at the IAPA too, I'm sure, this year. Lots of exciting things coming up. We have Sven coming over in, I think, June from Europe to do some Orlando with us.
Orlando classics.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. So I'm really excited for this year. 2019 was a pretty good year, but let's make 2020 even better.
Woohoo!
And then we thank you guys so much for listening. We actually kept it under an hour today. Can you believe that? It's last episode was twice as long.
Yeah.
So check out the last couple episodes. We got a bunch of good episodes out there. We talk about some of the things I'm sure you want to talk about, including China or Hagrid's, all that kind of good stuff. So don't forget to follow us on social media. Go to our website, thecoasterkings.com.
Blow us up. Send us messages. Say hi. Comment on things.
We love hearing from you guys.
We love talking to you guys. It's one of our favorite things about doing this.
So continue that. In 2020, maybe we'll even do a park meetup. We'll see. Who knows? So we'll see. But thank you guys so much, as always, for your dedication and following us and your love and appreciating what we do, and we appreciate what you guys do for us. And so we look forward to making 2020 an even better year.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well, that was Sean.
Alex.
And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.